We good?
Yep.
All right. Well, wow, what a turnout. This is very surprising. I'm very happy to see this. I don't know how many of you know me. There's a few familiar faces out here. My name is Rob Rotter. I'm the Iowa County Sheriff. And what sets me apart from all the other sheriffs that we've ever had is I'm from here. I think I'm the only sheriff ever in the history of Iowa County that came from Amana. This is my school. I started on the one end in kindergarten and worked all my way up to this end, and so this is the only school I ever knew outside of college, so it's really always a pleasure to be here. My parents still live in town, just on the other side of the lake. Gretchen, who I know as Gretchen Baugh, grew up about a block and a half away from me, so really my Sunday school teacher is in here, Terry Baugh, so this is awesome, some classmates. So what propagated this conversation was a little scary situation that happened over the weekend where, and most of you probably know the story, but I'll recap it. And if I get something wrong, please let me know. That a car pulled up to or into a driveway or near a house and took some photographs while a boy was outside playing. Now, what the reason for those photographs are, I don't know. I don't know that we'll ever know. But it was a scary situation when you think about it, how close somebody comes to a child playing outside and the things that we hear and read about that can happen to kids. And so, first and foremost, I just want to address that, okay, because that's how we got here in the first place. When I was young, we were taught the old-fashioned stranger danger, don't take candy from strangers, very basic stuff. And it served us well. The type of abductions where kids disappeared were that classic bad guy pulls up in a car, sees a child playing outside in the park, wherever, grabs them and throws them in the car, and off they go. And so that's the type of abduction that we kind of knew about. It wasn't something that was front and center, but it happened enough. And in the 60s and 70s, there's actually statistically was a pretty bad time for that sort of thing. There are kids that disappeared during that era that have never been heard from, and we don't have any clue what happened to them. One of the most famous cases in the United States is the Johnny Gosch case. A paper boy delivering the Des Moines Register disappeared on his route and has never been heard from since. So that's the type of abduction that we grew up worrying about. Abduction has completely changed, and that's, I think, something that a lot of people don't realize. The type of abduction where somebody's actually grabbed and thrown in a car is extremely rare, very, very rare. And the reason that is not because people who steal kids went away. They're still there. They've just got better ways to do it now. The most common way is to just ask the child to get in the car. All they have to do is create some kind of a conversation with the child. I'm lost. I'm looking for a house. I've lost my dog. Can you help me find the dog? We had 2 girls in Iowa just a few years ago that were abducted, willingly got into a pickup. A man owned some farm ground. He was actually the son of a farmer. Picked up 2 teenage girls, very young teenage girls, asked them if they would want a job mowing. And the girls had been taught never to get into a car or go with a stranger without asking first. The 2 girls told this man, I can't do that for you unless we ask Mom. So he says, oh, absolutely. I wouldn't hear of it. Hop in, we'll go to your parents' house, we'll get permission. Well, that was the end of that. Now, we know that story because, unfortunately, one of the girls was killed. The other survived and was able to tell this story. So they weren't pulled into the pickup kicking and screaming. They got in willingly. And that is how it happens. The other side of it is there's a relationship there that started, and one of the most common things we're dealing with now is contact made over the internet. Now, when I was a kid, many, many years ago, we didn't have to deal with this. The people that we knew, if I had a friend, I knew who they were, where they lived, who their parents were. I knew everything, right? Now we have virtual friends. We have friends with people on the internet that we think we know who they are, we think we know what they look like, we think we know where they live, but in reality we don't. And if you think about kids, and I'm sure there's kids in this room, and I'll bet you my kids are they're just as guilty. I have a 16-year-old and a almost 15-year-old. They have social media on their phones, and I know perfectly well they have friends they've never met, friends, right? And they think they know who they are. One of the things that I've been involved with since being sheriff is the abduction of kids. I've studied it. I've gone to Virginia. We are actually in Iowa County trying to set up a task force to combat that. See, we never want it to happen. We've never had it happen in Iowa County. We want to leave it that way. But I got very interested in how these things happen because I don't care where you are, where you live, big city, little town, these things statistically happen all throughout the country. So there's somebody who lives in Cedar Rapids is in no more danger statistically than someone who lives in Amana, because these are crimes of opportunity. Most of the child abductors don't plan their abduction. They actually, it's something in the back of their mind that they've thought about, but until something presents itself, some situation presents itself, that's when it happens. So it's many times spur of the moment. On the other hand, though, when we deal with the internet issue, what we have, and I'll give you a case study, and this just really shows you that it can happen to anybody. We have a 13-year-old girl. She lives in the Midwest. She has the perfect family that we would think of as the perfect family. She's got a little brother, got a mom and a dad. They live on a nice acreage. They're middle income. Everything's perfect. She starts to involve herself in the internet, which a lot of kids do. And she befriends a 15-year-old boy on the internet. They become best friends quickly. It's very easy to do that because you find out what they like, and I can pick out somebody's internet site, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I can see what they like, what are they involved in. If they like soccer, do they like rap music, whatever it is. I can identify those things and become your best friend, okay? I can match everything, and I can tell you all the things that you want to hear. So 13-year-old girls like to hear how pretty they are, right? They like to hear how smart and funny and all these things. So this person, this 15-year-old, befriends this girl to the point where now she considers this person her best friend in the world, even though she's never met him. As 13-year-olds, as many of you know, there's little hiccups in the household once in a while. You get in trouble, you didn't clean your room, whatever, you stayed out too late, and you get in trouble. And you share that with your best friend. And slowly, this best friend starts to convince this girl that her parents are mean and you should get away. And of course, she can't do that. She's not a runaway type of person. She's not going to leave her. She's not going to leave her mom and her dad and her little brother. But she's being groomed to think that. And so finally, after about 2 months of what I would call grooming, this 15-year-old boy convinces her that it would be fun to sneak out of the house tonight, and we're going to have some fun. I'll get you back home before the sun comes up. Your parents will never know. There's no way you're going to get in trouble. She agrees to do this. So it's a summer evening. The windows are open. She plans to sneak out of her bedroom. It's a ground floor room, easy to crawl out of. Just before midnight, she gets a text from her friend that he's delayed, but my uncle is going to pick you up, and he's going to bring you to my house. My uncle's a great guy. You'll love him. And, we're only a few minutes away, and then we'll have a good time. She falls for this. She gets in the car. willingly, not kicking and screaming, right? Well, there is no 15-year-old boy. The uncle is not the uncle. The uncle is the 15-year-old boy. What was unique about this is he actually had a nephew that was 15 and had, pictures of him and used that as the model, but he had no knowledge that any of this was going on. Within a month, this girl was now prisoner. She was, this is now a full abduction. Parents have absolutely no idea what happened. I mean, they literally come down to get her, wondering why she didn't come for breakfast one morning, and the room's just empty. This girl lived a really, really hard life for about 3 months. She was made to do things that she never dreamed she would ever have to do. They treated her basically like a slave. They prostituted her. Bad, bad stuff. The abductor made the mistake that she was fairly brainwashed and that she wouldn't run, and actually gave her a little bit of freedom at a Walmart and let her go in. And she hadn't had any new clothes, so let her go in and pick out some clothes. In the process of that, she runs away. Okay. My guess, and the investigators' guesses are, her time was very limited. People who do stuff like that will use you for so long, and then once you're no longer good for what they stole you for, you just end up one of those people that no one ever heard from again. And that's my guess is what would have happened there. Now, of course, she was very sorry. She's scarred for life. She actually spends a good portion of her time talking to groups like you about this. But the reason I tell that story is because I want you to realize that the abductions that we think of that are still possible, the grabbing off the street, those things are possible. But they aren't the number one way, statistically, the way it happens anymore. The most likely child that gets, if you even want to call it abducted, because abducted gives us kind of an idea of what that means, that you've been taken and stolen and hidden and kept as prisoner. A lot of times, in fact, the majority of them are actually teenage runaways. People who have had some problems at home that left, ended up on the street. There's a program that we bring to schools, and maybe we should bring it to this school, called, basically, it's the human slave trade. Statistically, and this is really hard to wrap your head around, we actually have more slaves, people who would constitute as slaves in the United States today than we did before slavery ended. Okay, number-wise, we have a lot. And a lot of them come from runaways. Usually, and it doesn't matter if it's boy or girl, it used to be, it used to be more girls than boys. Now it really statistically makes no difference. If you run away from home, within the next 48 hours, very likely you're going to be approached by someone who has ill intentions. They'll see you, they'll buy you some food, they'll give you a place to sleep, and next thing you know, you're pretty well a prisoner. They usually use violence against you. They'll usually try to get you on drugs and make you dependent on them so that you can't leave them anymore. Even if you have the chance, you won't do it because you can't, because they're taking care of you. And so that's the number one way that kids today disappear. And so what I tell people, especially kids, and I'm going to tell you, this goes for adults too, but for different reasons. The internet is an awesome thing. It's a great tool. But consider it like this. At night, when the sun goes down and you're getting ready for bed, you close the door, you usually lock it, most of us do, and we feel secure. But when you're on the internet, especially as kids, consider that you have left your front door wide open, because that's exactly what you've done. But only, in this case, you haven't left it wide open for your neighborhood. You've left it open for the world. There are people that will get into your life through the internet, and they will do things. Now, for adults, the number one way to be scammed out of your money is by things that that criminals will learn on the internet. They will find out what your hours are. They will find out that that you have kids and they're involved in sports, and then on Saturdays we're not home because we're at the soccer field. So you tell the world everything that a criminal needs to know, and you willingly hand it to them. It'd be like we used to be worried about people going through your mail. You don't even need that anymore because most people are putting it out there. So I'm not saying that you turn off your cell phones and stop partaking in the internet, but just be very smart about it. Just yesterday, we had an adult, about 40, hand $1,700 to a person. Okay, the reason they did that was because they were told that they had unpaid fines. Well, this is interesting how they did this. This person actually did have a fine, and some counties put it in the paper that you were fined X amount of dollars. They found that and claimed that the check wasn't good, and you still owe, now you owe, it was like a $100 speeding ticket turned into a $1,700 because of all the fees and the penalties. This is the first time we've had a scam where it involved me, in that the person who called, an Iowa County citizen, claimed to be me, and that I could take care of the fine by, if you go to Target and get a Target gift card and give me the numbers over the phone, we'll make this all go away. Okay, so they were upset because they thought the sheriff's office had something to do with it. Of course we didn't. The same thing that victimizes children victimize adults in different ways, but it's the same portal that people walk through to get the information that allows them to take advantage of you. The one thing I'll say about the kids, statistically, the chances of you getting abducted are very, very, very small. So I don't want kids going to bed tonight worrying about that it's just a matter of time before somebody grabs me, because it really isn't. But that, nevertheless, there are things that you can do to make it less likely that you'll be that person. So you think about this weekend, a child playing outside. Well, we're not going to stop playing outside. That's not going to happen. But if we make sure that our kids, when a car pulls up, we just go in the house. We don't have to talk to a person. We're worried about being, as kids, I think kids are worried about being disrespectful to adults. Okay? Any good adult who cares is not going to expect a 12-year-old to come out to the road and give you directions to the ox yoke. Okay? And as an adult, you're not going to ask a 12-year-old how to get there. There's better ways to do that. You're not going to ask kids to get into your car and help you find your dog, or pet the puppies, the box of puppies that I have in the trunk, or whatever. So it is okay to seem rude. Okay? As kids, if something is uncomfortable, and it should be uncomfortable, if somebody comes up to you, pulls into your driveway, and you don't know them, simply walk into the house. If they have business with your parents, they'll knock on the door, they'll ring the doorbell, and they'll talk to your parents. There's no reason for you to do it. Okay? So that's easier said than done, I know, because kids are taught to respect adults and be helpful, and that's fine. But in that case, it isn't fine. When you are out and about, if you're at the mall, numbers are great. Now, they don't always save kids, though. We have the kids, the two girls up in Evansdale. They were together. Now, we'll never know that story, is my guess. That case is just, there's just nothing there. The leads are just non-existent. If I had to guess, I would say those two girls got into a vehicle willingly. I don't think they went kicking and screaming. You don't fight off two girls at the same time. One of them is going to get away. So my guess is there was a story there. The girls got into the car or the truck or whatever willingly, and what happened from there we'll never know. But there are good things in numbers. Now I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me. As I grew up here, I grew up in Amana. And this goes back to the stranger danger that we were even taught, back in the early 70s. At Little League practice, Now, I lived in Amana, and the baseball diamond is what now I think we use as a soccer field. And my good friend Stephen Thalaker and I, we had a carpool situation with our parents, and there was a mishap, and practice got over, and there was no ride. And so Steve and I decided, well, it's 2 miles, it won't kill us. I'm going to guess we're probably 10 or 11 years old. So we're walking along the Lily Lake, and I remember it like it was yesterday. A gold-colored 2-door General Motors car pulls up and yells out the window, "I'll give you a ride. Wherever you need to go, I'll give you a ride." And Steve and I looked at each other and said, "No, we're good." Now here's the thing that stuck out. He yells, "I know your dad's. It's okay." Well, first of all, you don't know me, so I don't know how you know my dad. And I know you don't know Steve's dad. So the thing that really sticks out is it's a 2-door car with a bench seat. And in the 70s, these seats, you could put 4 people across without any problem. But this guy pushed the passenger seat forward and was motioning us to get in the back seat. Okay? Now, I'm going to blame Steve. Steve was this close to getting in. I think he had a foot in, and I grabbed him and I said no. And, he wanted to ride. And later on, we described the car, the person, to our parents. It was nobody we knew. Now, what was going to happen there? I don't know. But it sticks out in my head that's the kind of thing. That's an opportunity. Nobody knew that we were going to walk there. That's somebody probably with ill intentions that sees that opportunity, and those are the types of things you have to be careful of. Now, with our communication capabilities, that's probably not going to happen much anymore, getting stranded at the baseball field. But if it ever does, don't take long trips walking along a highway by yourself. Stay with friends. I'm certain that if I wouldn't have been with Steve, he would have gotten in the car, and I don't know what would have happened. Hopefully nothing, but I don't know. Why an adult would want to pick up 2 kids he doesn't know and put them in the back seat, I have no idea. But it's something that I'll never forget, and it really makes me think about the possibilities there. But those are the types of things that you just really want to think about as kids and as adults, and have those conversations with your kids of what you should and shouldn't do. And really, you just have to, the stranger danger thing, it's good advice. But there's another side that we have to think about, and that is many times, and we talk about statistics, and we're faced with statistics. When a child is abused or even, in the worst case, murdered, many times the culprit is somebody the family knows. Might even be somebody you're related to. So it is very important that we tell our kids that if anybody makes us feel uncomfortable, that we tell the person we trust the most. And no matter how awkward it may seem, these are the things that you have to do. Because the chances are, in those situations, you will know your abuser. So that's a tough thing to explain to kids because, again, we're taught to respect our elders and this and that, and so it's really hard for a child to stand up to an adult and say this is wrong and tell somebody about it. But it's just something we have to do. Okay? So that's the scary stuff. Okay? The good stuff is you really need to be more careful about getting hit by lightning. Okay? Playing safe and not playing out in the yard when there's lightning, because you're going to probably statistically more likely to get struck by lightning than you are to get abducted. But we probably won't get struck by lightning because we'll take precautions as well, right? We won't play under the tree in a lightning storm, right? So all the things that we know of that can hurt us, we want to take precautions. Silly things that we think of as silly that you need to do to keep yourself alive. The number one, does anybody in here, and I'm going to talk to the younger kids, does anybody here know the number one cause of a child's severe injury or death? Does anybody know what it is? Any guesses? Got to be a guess. Something you did today already. Yeah. That's the number one way to lose your life as a child, is in a car. So the most dangerous thing you've done today was driving the car. People, when I was younger, nobody wore seatbelts. Cars weren't even designed. I mean, they were there, but it just didn't work. And they were uncomfortable and very inconvenient. That's no longer the case anymore. But when I first started working in the sheriff's office, and that's been 29 years ago, I can't begin to tell you how many adults and children that I had to take out of cars that didn't survive the accident, that weren't wearing seatbelts. I saw people die that shouldn't have even been injured. Okay? So when we're talking about safety, that is the number one way to stay safe, is simply put on your seatbelt. Under Iowa law, everybody under 18 needs to have a seatbelt on now. So there's really no excuse not to do it, and we've all grown up doing it, and we should be willing to do it without any issues. And don't think that just because you're running, a mile or something to go run an errand, that seatbelt doesn't count. Because again, those pesky statistics tell us that we're more likely to get involved in an accident within a mile of our home than anywhere else, because that's where we travel the most. So be very, very careful. So that's that. There's got to be questions that we can answer. So this is Ask a Cop time now, okay? And I'll tell you, I've got bribes in the bag, okay? So whoever is asked the question is going to get a prize. Does that work? There's got to be something. Yes.
If you see someone drive over to your house and you ask them if you want to ride, then I would always say no.
Good. That's perfect. Will you catch this if I throw it, or will I knock someone's glasses off? Thank you. That's a great question. One of the easiest ways for a child to get out of that situation is to deflect it. And the way to deflect it is say, I'd like to help you. I got to go talk to my mom real quick, or my dad. I'll be right back. And then run into the house and don't come back out again. If you're home alone, like, I grew up, my parents were working. If something bad happened, I was on my own, and I think there's probably a lot of kids in that situation too during the day, especially in the summer. So deflect it. Blame it on somebody else. You don't have to be the bad guy. Just say, I've got to go talk to my mom, or I got to ask my mom something, and go do that, and then lock the door. Yes?
Is it okay to ride with a police if a police car comes up?
Yes. As long as they identify themselves properly. Now, if somebody just says, I'm a cop, like one of my problems is I drive an unmarked car. Okay? I don't look like a police car. Okay? So I would be really, if I had to pick you up, I would call for a marked car. So I didn't put you in that situation. Because how do you know, right? But, a fully marked car in uniform, and there's a situation that exists that, something's happened where, you need a ride, yes, that's fine. But don't just take someone's word for it, okay? Good catch. One of the things that I think would be, that we should talk about, given the fact of the things that have happened in the last few months, Iowa County has done a lot with the active shooter situation. And that's another thing where we have a tendency to really dwell on it, and rightfully we should. I mean, there's things happening that shouldn't be happening, okay? And kids don't need to go to school and worry about whether they're safe there or not. But the one thing that I do have to point out is when you look, and I always hate to throw out statistics, but it's how we judge things. The number of shootings in schools isn't really going through the roof like you might think it is. What has happened is when I grew up, and some of the people in this room grew up, we had 3 news stations. They were on at noon, 6, and 10. They were half hour. It was local news and then maybe some national news, and that was it. And then tomorrow, new news took its place, and the world kept going. Now we have 24-hour news. So when there's a shooting, we hear about it. If you look, and it's very easy to do this, FBI crime statistics are not a secret. They're there to look at for anybody. You can just Google it and look at violent crime in general. It's actually been steadily going down over the years. What I really liked, and I know a lot of schools, and you guys weren't put in that position because you were on spring break, but a lot of schools had walkouts. And the one thing that I really like to see, and I don't know what, and I'll bet you a kid came up with this, and it's just the most wonderful thing, is they had the walk-ins. Did you hear about any of those? Where you picked a kid that maybe hadn't talked to you before, maybe had lunch with that person who always sits alone. Those are the types of things that kids can do that will affect this problem that we have, is not to have the outcasts. And I'll tell you what, I've heard parents talk about how we're making kids soft these days. They're too soft. This bullying is, it's not that bad. We've all dealt with bullies. No, I don't buy that. The reason I don't buy that is when we had bullies, the bullies were on the playground or after school or something, and then when they went home, you went home, it was done. And you only had the bully while the bully was there. Now the bully follows you everywhere you go, electronically, back to the internet, back to social media, where the bullying is 24/7. And I'll tell you, it's easy to tell a kid, shut it off and don't pay attention. But when all your friends are talking about the kid that's making fun of you, and they're posting it, and they're sharing it, and it's all over the place, and you can't walk down the hall without people snickering because of the joke that's going on around you, that's not the kind of bullying that we ever dealt with. So that's the kind of thing that we can affect. Some of the worst bullying situations I've seen that actually resulted in criminal charges got there because the parents were taking part in it. And some of that, we can deal with when a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old are going at it on the internet. We can deal with it internally at the school. But when parents start taking part, and you'd be surprised, it would sicken you how many times that happens, where a parent is actually taking part in the bullying and propagating it. And we've seen cases nationally where that's happened, and people have been charged criminally. I will tell you, in Iowa County, we have charged parents criminally with harassment of a child because of that. So those are the types of things, in my opinion, that we can affect to change what we've got going on here. You think about all the laws that we have on the book. They all come down to one thing. How do we treat people? I don't care what it is, how we treat other human beings, that is what our law is all about. And until we fix that, of how we treat other people, I don't see where this is going to end. And so yesterday when I saw that movement where kids were taking that initiative to be friends with people, that was awesome. That was the biggest step I've seen. And all the politicians and everyone has things to say, that was the most powerful thing I saw. And kids have the power, I think, to solve a lot of these problems. They can't solve them all, but they can do a lot with what they did yesterday. And if that continued, that would just be awesome. Any other questions? Got to be something. Yes.
So this is kind of like a what if thing. So last summer, I was at my house. I was home alone. I was watching TV, and a truck pulled up. It was a marked mail truck. I'm pretty sure, but it could have been anything. So I they came up the door with a clipboard and a package, and they knocked. I look over at my sister, and I'm like, what do we do? Because we were on alert. We were pretty aware. So
Mhm.
I knocked. I had them knock. My parents didn't answer the phone. They were both at work, so. Um, so I opened the door. I'm pretty sure I could have handled this a lot better. I opened the door. He asked for a signature. So parents aren't home, so he made me do it.
Mhm.
And then he dropped off the package. But I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure that was like he was a real guy. But
Right.
if he wasn't, then me and my sister probably would have been in more trouble. So I want to know what I should have done and what I can do better.
Well, as I grew up, I knew our ups driver, UPS driver.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe we don't anymore. There's absolutely nothing wrong with just not opening the door. If you don't feel safe opening that door and you're not convinced it is who they are, or you have any question whatsoever, they'll come back. They'll probably put a little note on their door and say you missed a package, and now you know there is a package, and then maybe it'll be a little safer in your mind the next time if it does. But if anything gives you the weird feeling, or you just plain don't know, it's always best to err on the side of safety and just don't open the door. Right? Yeah.
I'm going to guess they deal with that too. Like, there's probably kids who don't answer the door and they can see them in there.
Absolutely.
That when they don't answer, it's just, it happens. And that's
I'm sure it's something they're used to. Yep. Yes.
What happens if like a school shooting and like what if you're like a teenager like that and the car with your best friend and like one of your friends like dead to your car?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'll tell you, if there's ever any kind of a shooting, I don't care where it is, if it's at school or at the movie theater, the mall, you run. The first thing on your mind is to evacuate, to get away. Okay, get away from the danger. If an emergency happens and you need to leave with a friend's parent, that's perfectly fine. You know who that is. But don't get into cars with people that you don't know, no matter what the situation is. Okay? If it's a situation like that, there's going to be police all over very quickly. So, but the first and foremost thing is just get away. Okay? Thanks. Yes.
So let's say if your parents aren't home, like let's say it's the weekend and your parents aren't home and you're still at work,
Mm-hmm.
and the same person in the car keeps pulling up constantly next to your house. What should you do if your parents aren't home, like, and they keep like peeking out the window to see if they're like outside or something? Like, do it.
Call us. Call us. You can call 911. To you, that's an emergency, okay, because you don't feel safe. So you're not going to bother us. You just explain to the dispatcher what you just explained to me and ask them to send a car, and we will come over and we will see who it is and what their business is. Don't ever be afraid to call us, okay? And it's so easy now. You know, when I was a kid, we had the sticker on the phone, and you had like, okay, ambulance, fire, whatever, 911. Nice and easy, okay? Don't ever be afraid to use it. Don't call us to ask us when the cable's going to come back on, because we get those. But anything like that, you give us a call. Yes?
Can you talk to them a little bit about calling 911? What happens if they get scared? Things like that?
Perfect question. First of all, a new thing that we're just starting in Iowa County, and it'll eventually be throughout the country, is texting to 911 is now an option. Now, here's my fear about that. You text 911, hit send. Now you're talking to the dispatcher with your thumbs. Okay? Not great. Okay? But if you're in a situation where you're hiding, maybe you're home alone. Now, this happened down in North English. A 12-year-old girl was home alone, and the house was being burglarized right after school. They came in. She was in the basement. She hid in a closet. Now, we did not have text 911, but she was whispering in the phone, and we caught the guys. How traumatic that would have been. But in a case like that, when you can't talk, use text to 911. Otherwise, talk to us. The other thing I'll say is don't ever hang up. don't hang up 911. Let us hang up. If we need to hang up, we'll hang up. But leave the line open. What I like to do, and I like to have my dispatchers do, is when they have especially a child or there's a medical emergency, I like to leave the line open because things change. And to reestablish the call is not always easy, okay? What happens with 911 is if the circuits begin to get loaded, you start transferring 911 calls to other counties and eventually Des Moines. So if something changes and you call 911 again, you might not get the same dispatcher you were talking to before, and now you got to start all over, okay? The other thing about that is when you call 911, and this is something that has really kind of been forgotten about. We were always told to know our location, right? Well, we got a little lazy because 911 on the landlines, and when I say landline, I mean if you still have a phone that's hooked up to the wall that you don't put in your pocket, okay? My kids barely know what it is, but that tells us exactly where you're at. As soon as you hit the second one, our screen lights up and it has everything we need to know. When we use cell phones, that does not happen, okay? What will eventually happen is it'll start giving us a location roughly based on where your phone is at. It won't give us it'll actually give us a dot on a map eventually. It takes a little while for that to happen. So, why is that important? Well, again, if you end up getting a different dispatcher, if it gets sent off to another county, and you say, I'm at the swimming pool, they're like, what swimming pool? I'm in Des Moines. We have a lot of pools. So always know where you're at. Now, we did a little experiment. We do active shooter training in the factories in all of Iowa County, and we trained all the people that work out at Kinsey Manufacturing, and we asked every single employee who knows what the address is to the place you work at. 16 people said they knew it. Half of them were wrong. So know where you're at and be prepared when you call 911 to explain where you're at, because the dispatcher might not know where you're at. The first thing he or she's going to say when the answer is, this is Iowa County 911, what is the address of your emergency? That's the first question they ask, because all the help in the world is worthless if we don't send it to the right place. So that's a big thing to remember as kids. Now, if you don't know where you're at, and you might not because you've been in maybe a car accident and you're the only one who can call, don't hang up. Leave that phone live. The dispatcher will continue to talk to you, and as long as we keep you on the line, the mapping gets better and better because it starts bouncing signals around and it triangulates and it finds you, okay? Did I answer that okay? Okay. Do you want a pencil?
Say that if they don't know where you're at, say they're babysitting or something, a piece of mail.
Yep.
It might have an address on it.
It might.
Or a magazine or something.
Yep.
Sometimes has an address that they can
Yep.
relay that to their dispatcher.
Something else we like to do at night and even during the day is if you can turn on a porch light, that helps. That's very helpful. If you can even tell the color of the house, that helps. Anything at all that gets us there faster, that's the big trick. Other questions? I've got some footballs left.
A lot of these guys play Fortnite,
Mm-hmm.
and they're playing the shit
Yep.
all across the world.
Yep.
And if you can talk a little bit about, like, I always tell Ryan, don't tell them
Right.
the town you live in. I mean,
Right.
if you say you're from Iowa, that's fine.
Right.
But I even told him if somebody ever asked specific towns, well, I don't care. Say Des Moines. There's a lot of people
Right.
who live in Des Moines.
And the people that want to take advantage of that will mine for that information. And what a lot of times they'll try to do is you make these Fortnite friends online, and they'll want to know, hey, what's your Snapchat address or what's your Instagram? And they'll get closer and closer to you. And that they use online gaming a lot. So never believe that the person that says they're the 14-year-old living in Cincinnati is really the 14-year-old living in Cincinnati. You have no idea who they are. So that's a big one. And Fortnite, the online gaming, it seemed kind of like it was starting to kind of wane a little bit, and then this comes, and now it's all you hear about.
I sit right over there, he's been so nice, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said, you just
Well,
play the game, don't give them any information.
Exactly.
That's fine. You don't be worried about it. Just don't give them
Yeah. Well, you won't find the online pedophile. You won't find anyone who's nicer. Those will be the nicest people in the world. Yeah.
So if we talk about how cell phones, and the internet are not necessarily that great, but have you come across any? Well, I want to emphasize that when the kids have their phones, I don't want them to be so focused on their phones that they're not aware of their surroundings or
Right.
where they're going or their landmarks that they're at. So
Right.
if you can emphasize they need to be aware, not focused on their phones, because I think that's a false sense of security when kids are out playing outside.
Right.
But also to the second part, are there any apps that are helpful? Have you guys come across anything in Iowa County that are like Find a Phone or Find a Friend or?
Well, there is one nice thing, and there aren't very many nice things I can say about Snapchat, but there is one nice thing, is that you can pick who you share your location with.
Right.
And my rule with my kids is, I don't want you sharing your location except with me or your mom. Your friends don't even need to know where you're at. I mean, that's just because you don't know who else has access to that. So that's a good one. I think anything that you can do, and I don't want to be the spy for my kids, but I want to be the spy for my kids. So, the locator is always on for me, and there's all kinds of apps that you can use to locate the phone. So there's good ones out there. The ones you want to be careful of, the ones that put it out there for the world. And the other question you had was the being so intent into your. Well, that's a problem that we actually have here in Amana because of the trail. We have people that will sometimes walk out in front of cars because they're doing this, or they got the music on and they don't hear the horn honk. What was the game? It's Pokemon Go. Yeah, that was awful. People were driving in the ditch, running into trees. It was really not good. So the one thing that I always worry about especially is the kids that maybe are on the trail or on their bikes that have the earbuds in and they don't hear the car coming behind them. Some of the worst accidents I've been to have been bicycle accidents. They're just awful. And you can just imagine what happens to a person when they get hit by a moving car on a bike. So everybody loves their music, but listen to the music at home. Don't have the earbuds on when you're out and about and you're walking or biking or whatever. It's so dangerous. It's not worth it. Yes.
Can you buy as dirty as you want? Is there a limit for you buying, or can you just go?
Yeah, that was something that I talked about this weekend. If somebody tries to take you, there are no rules. If something bad happens in a school or a movie theater and somebody's trying to do you harm, there are no rules. You kick, you scream, you scratch, you do whatever you need to do. There's nothing that you need to worry about when it comes to that. We don't teach kids how to fight because that's just not. We're not experts in that, and there's a lot of kids that just maybe can't. But you do what you have to do, okay? And that's something that we teach in the active shooter thing too. Is you do what you have to do to get yourself safe, no matter what that is, okay? And so the answer is no. There are no rules. You do what you have to do. You're okay? It glows. Okay. Anything else? Nothing? Well, I don't want to go home with all this stuff, so I've got some other things for you guys if you want to line up, and I'll hand it out. Now, one thing I want to tell you is you can always get a hold of me. Just call the Iowa County Sheriff, ask for the sheriff. If I'm not there, leave a message. I have an email and all that stuff. If you ever need anything, okay, adults and kids alike, you know where to find me, okay? Just call the sheriff's office and say you need to talk to me, and I'll be in touch with you, okay? And if I can ever be a service to any of you, you let me know, okay? So I really, really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. I don't get to do this nearly enough, so thank you. Have a great spring break, okay, and summer. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You bet. So there's a non-emergency line. Always use 911 if you have to. But if you don't have to, if it's not an emergency, the number is, if you're ready, 319 642 7307. And that will get you our administrative line, and that's answered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All right. Thank you. So come up here. I got a lot of things that glow, so this will keep you up at night. You didn't have you want a pencil? Yeah. All right.
I'll take my cup.
You want a cup? All right. You want a pencil, or do you not use pencils anymore? These computers. You want that? All right. I hope I have enough. We'll have something all stuck together. I might have to hand out the rest of the football. Run out of these, okay? All right. You're welcome. Thank you for coming here today on your day off.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, you bet you can. There you go.
Hey, Sheriff, can I get a little more detail on that